Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me on the stage. We'll have about a 10-minute discussion. I was asked to be quite short, so I trust you for the concision of your answers. I'm going to start with you, Brody. We speak two languages. If you need a translation, you have a simultaneous translation today. Brody, you have many hats. You have a historical defender of human rights. You are a hunter of dictators. You are also in the International Commission of Lawyers, and you have been working a lot to the arrest of Hissène Habré when we were working for Human Rights Watch. Why did you attack this dictator? Everything starts with the case Augusto Pinochet, a Chilean dictator arrested in London on a arrest warrant, Spanish arrest warrant. And when the Britons decided that Pinochet could be arrested and extradited anywhere in the world, in spite of his status of former head of state, everybody started to dream. And we were all very excited in the world of the human rights, and we were thinking about who is going to be the next Pinochet. So the NGOs, the Chadian NGOs, came to us and asked Delphine. She said, "We want to do the same thing. We want to do what the Chilean victims did." And at Human Rights Watch, we were very interested to this case because Hissène Habré took refuge in Senegal, and we wanted that this idea of international justice is not something which is reserved for the European countries. Spain putting to trial Chilean and so on, and Rwanda's France putting to trial Rwandans. So here a nation could judge on its own territory a dictator who took refuge in another African country. So we have been working with all the victims for 17 years. Alain, Werner, you are director of Civitas Maxima. You are a lawyer in Geneva. You know this trial very well. We have heard that Hissène Habré has been condemned to lifelong sentence. His lawyers made an appeal, and now the whole process. He organized everything. So what did you do? I was just one of the lawyers of the victims. And Reed is our father to all. He was my professor, and thanks to him, a lot of us do our work. I would like to say a few words about Reed. Reed is somebody, I don't know if you realize who is Reed, Brody. He is somebody who created new models. During years, he was convinced that far further above politics, you could do something which was impossible to do, to bring Habré to trial. He was protected by everybody, American, French, and there was no chance getting hold of Hissène Habré. During 17 years, he always was convinced, and everybody was saying he is putting at risk his career because he continued to think it was possible. And this was possible. So it opens a huge hope, because compared to the International Criminal Court, with no money, with a few victims and a few lawyers, you can put to trial a dictator in a country. And this is thanks to him. And this opens huge doors of hope.
Vous vouliez dire quelque chose à Saskia?
You wanted to say something to Saskia. What I wanted, because it's also a partner, she's also a partner, I wanted to pay a tribute to the organization of Philip Grant, because in this promise of justice we are defending on the side of the lawyers, you have the ICT, but you have also a huge dynamic, a huge momentum, because you can do a lot of things outside of the International Criminal Courts, and this is what trial makes with lawyers, with education and lawyers, also in the United Nations. And if you have all these trials in Algeria, in Nepal, if a minister has been arrested from Gambia, was arrested in Switzerland, it's thanks to trial and organizations who work with local lawyers outside of the international criminal courts. And this is the place where the justice takes place. And we think this is a new battlefield. So we think that it's going to be incarnated in this debate. So become member of trial if you are not.
Alain Werner, vous êtes
So,
formidable.
Alain Werner, you are fantastic. We do not need any moderator for a debate with you. Philippe Grant, you are Director of Trial International, track impunity always. Concretely, what do you do in order to track the dictators? I would like to pay a tribute to Alain and Reid. I will start with the same sentence. Everything started with the case of Pinochet. It was a source of inspiration. It was really inspiration. A partnership between lawyers and victims who were committed. It was possible to arrest a former head of state because he comes in one of our countries. And as you could see in the film on Hissène Habré, and we are going to speak about this video, sometimes these things have ramification also in our country, because the presence of perpetrators, of suspects in our country, you can take the example of my organization, but also you have a Liberian leader who is being put to trial. He's in his country for war crimes. You have Alain Superizen, who is condemned to a lifelong sentence for extrajudicial execution in Guatemala. And then you have this Gambian former high-ranking official for forced execution who has been arrested in Bern. And then you have people known since the 90s. Presently, we have a woman who is suspected of war crimes in Bosnia. He has been arrested here in Switzerland, so because our organization could find her traces here in Switzerland. So you have lots of little organizations who are very active and who help us to bring forward justice. And also we can through some economic actors who have their headquarters here, and they are sometimes accomplices of crimes committed in these countries. For instance, through selling weapons, knowing that the regime is going to use that to commit international crimes. So complicity also in looting. You have a lot of cases and files which have been submitted to the Swiss prosecution. So you have a lot which can be done. So Saskia Ditisheim, you are president of Lawyers Without Borders, and you are interested in the defense of the victims. Yes, exactly. One of our aim of Lawyers Without Borders in Switzerland is to guarantee a fair process like the one of Hissène Habré. Yes, we are going to come back on that. I admire a lot the work which has been done by Reid, who is really the cornerstone of this work. And the fight against impunity is necessary. It is something which is very laudable. But finally, we have to ask ourselves, when you fight against impunity, you want to see also the persons suspected condemned. We want to see those bastards being condemned. So you can. Why do we defend them? Just to have a good surroundings? You don't have to forget the architecture of a criminal trial, because it's based on contradictory arguments and it's based on fundamental rights, and you have to guarantee the fundamental rights of the defense, because there will be no justice without a strong defense, and the fight against impunity is the aim of the prosecution. The judge must judge, and we mustn't forget that in ICTR you have 25 persons who have been acquitted, who have been freed. So why? Because they had a very efficient defense. And that's how the justice could work, because each Each acquittal proves that the justice has functioned. So there was you can find on internet the defense arguments, which is very difficult, quite long to read, because he refused all defense from his official lawyers. He had lawyers which were appointed by the court, and he could never talk with his lawyer. This was a big problem, amongst others. Yes, the fight against impunity has to be, but you have to have a fair justice, a fair trial, and you have to work on a strong defense. Just a short reaction concerning the importance to have a good defense. Read Brody Saskia is criticizing a bit this tribunal. I don't know if she criticized this tribunal, but Hissenabré, we do that so that other persons, we wanted, of course, that Hissenabré gets a treatment which wasn't given to the victims, but he chose not to defend himself, and it is his right. And we were discussing about that yesterday, the question of imposing him lawyers appointed by the courts, although his line of defense was not to recognize this court. So we offered Hissenabré the opportunity to defend himself. You have seen in the film, there was a board card with a victim asking for justice. The victims were outraged that Hissenabré, who was their former dictator, who would do whatever he wanted with them, didn't have the decency to look at them and to tell them why he did what he did. So Hissenabré has chosen his line of defense, but it was not to the tribunal to impose him a line of defense. Alain Werner, last word about the importance of having fair trials. Hissenabré, I was one of the lawyers in the hearings. There was this incredible thing. He has a historical lawyer, what's a biggest lawyer, François Serre, from the bar of Paris, and he decided, as Hissenabré, not to plead. And François Serre was the most of the time in the hearings, but he didn't wear this robe. And then you had the public, and at outside of the hearing, he would give press conferences to the press, demolishing not only Reed Brody and myself and the accusation, but also the lawyers who had been appointed by the court. So responsibility, he decided not to defend himself, and then he defends him in the press by just putting dirt on us. Then he didn't take the lawyers that were appointed. He was tarnishing us in the press, and so they qualified the survivor of sexual violence, of nymphomaniacs, and from prostitutes. Thank you very much. Just last word of conclusion to you. The conclusion of this Hissenabré case, because you understood that he has a lifelong sentence. He went into appeal. This was debated by the judge, but he's still in prison. Yes. We are going to see if he's going to stay in prison, because April 27th we will have the verdict. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
On a vu dans ce court-métrage l'importance des victimes, de la parole des victimes. On a aussi vu
seen how important it is to hear the victims, and we saw how difficult it is for all these women to actually explain the acts of abuse that they've been subjected to, and that's what many women in Rwanda in 1994 were subjected to. 1 million individuals died in about 100 days, and there was an American film director, who decided to revisit the trial, one of the first trials of the International Criminal Tribunal of Arusha. I'm going to ask her to join me, Michel, and please give her a very warm round of applause, and she's going to tell you more about the documentary she directed. Michel Mitchell.
présenter votre
So,
long métrage.
so
In English, of course.
in English, yes. Okay. If you could tell us about your
First
film.
of all, we are so thrilled to be at this film festival. We had our European premiere just 2 weeks ago. So this is our second screening in Europe and our Swiss premiere. And one of the things that our team felt very strongly about was giving you more. Film is not a two-dimensional experience. I have to put this down because I need to use my hand. Film is not a two-dimensional experience. It should make you want more. And tonight, you are going to get more. These panelists are incredible. And two things. For those of you who are already in this space and already working in this space, I hope that you walk out of here today feeling that you are appreciated, because you never know. 20 years from now, a filmmaker may call you, because that's what happened to these guys. And for those of you, for all of you in this room, the message that my late co-director and I wanted you to have was the following. Things go horribly wrong in this world, and sometimes those things seem unsolvable. It seems impossible to tackle them. Well, guess what? In 1994, things did go horribly wrong. But 3 years later, humanity got it right. This is that story. We hope you're inspired. Thank you on behalf of my team for taking your time and being here today. Thanks.